Welcome everyone, it's Glacier Guy, rocking Glacier as always. We're going to do a little army showcase on this 2,000 points of Atlantian spears. It took me just over 2 months to assemble and paint them. We got them in early August and it is now the end of October, so we scooted in there just before the 3-month mark hit. I'm pretty happy about that. So let's kind of talk about the army overall and what it is. So the Atlantian spears are a successor chapter for the Blood Angels. Now I will be running them as regular Blood Angels, so I have access to the characters, but they are currently, and more than likely will stay, mostly Primaris only, and I will discuss that in a little bit. So, but let me read from the Book of Lore on what are the Atlantian spears. So for those of you that aren't aware, you have a little more context. Let me find the page. There we go. All right. So on page 31, the Atlantian spears ignored Dante's call for aid. Mysterious. The chapter's large librarius received the message, but took no action. For millennia, the chapter has fought to pacify the enclave of Alcinia and the sanctuary of, that's a really long word, not going to say it, in the Segmentum Tempestus. Relying on the gift of foresight present in an unusual number of librarians to respond to the innumerable Xenos and heretic threats that terrorize the vast regions. So I saw this and I read this and I'm like, librarians? Well, there are a lot of librarians in the Blood Angels Codex. Obviously you have the librarians I chose, but you have Mephiston, which is probably one of the best librarians in all of Space Marines. You have librarian dreadnoughts. You got quite a nice assortment of librarians. And so I went with Primaris only, mostly just because I sort of feel, well, mostly Primaris only, we'll discuss that. I went, at least for this 2,000 points, it's all Primaris. And there are some detachments, we'll get into that. But yeah, I went with mostly librarians for the HQs, kind of lore-wise, not so much like strategery-wise. But yeah, let me flip the camera around and we'll do a zoom in on each model and we'll discuss it further. All right, here we have our 2,000 points of Atlantian spears. We're going to start from the right, working our way to the left, and we're going to talk about what we got here. Got a little zoom in action. All right, so starting on the right, we have a Primaris librarian. It's going to be the warlord for the army. We're likely going to be a chief librarian. Probably going to rock the sanguinary discipline. We'll see how it goes, but I'm teasing doing the sanguinary discipline, turning him into kind of a mini Mephiston, kind of an assault beat stick. Behind him, we have a Phobos librarian. Either going to use the Obscura discipline for kind of like keeping the infiltrators kind of hidden, or go for another combat beat stick with sanguinary discipline. Behind him we have a Redemptor Dreadnought with a cool plasma gun. I kind of like the pink. Someone mentioned it was a bubblegum plasma gun, but I do have some Leviathan Dreadnoughts that also have a little bit of pink on them, so we went with pink on the plasma gun. I think it works out pretty well. It was mostly just an airbrush. I did a titanium white undercoat and then I hit it with an airbrush. For the squid pink from Vallejo. So he also has the Onslaught, Gatling Cannon, and the Stormbolters. So right down in front here we have 2 5-man squads of infiltrators, each with Helix gauntlets. Those are kit bashed. I don't have the kill team infiltrators or the starter set infiltrators that have the Helix gauntlet. And when you buy a regular box of just 10-man infiltrators, they don't come with the Helix gauntlet. Now if you noticed right here on this guy in the front, right, that guy right there. So he has the sergeants for every squad have a gold right arm, which I think is a cool accent. That's actually not anywhere in the lore for Atlantian spears. I just saw it on an example model that I saw when I was looking up the color scheme, and I kind of carried it forward on my army, which helps contrast and helps kind of pick out the sergeants from a distance so you can see what they are. All the knee pads, at least for most of the models, I tried to stick with the Blood Angel way they color frontline troops and everything. Now the helmets being gold, I couldn't change the helmet color, which is typically how they denote. So I went with the knee color marking for supports or battle line. Now infiltrators, funny enough, infiltrators are both considered to be support and battle line. So I went with battle line for one of the 5-man and support for the other. Behind them we have 2 3-man Blade Guard veteran squads. They could become 1-man or 1 6-man, but I went with 2 3-man. For now, and we have they both have plasma pistols for the sergeants. Now I guess technically you probably say one is a Volkite because his is holstered, so we don't know what it looks like, but I was going to run both as plasma pistols. Right next to it, we have a Primaris Apothecary, looking really nice. That is a regular dead white spray. I don't even think I went titanium white on that. I think it's a regular dead white spray through an airbrush, Vallejo dead white, over, and then a sepia wash, I think is what made that white. There's not a whole lot to it. I had to be really careful not spilling any of the other colors onto the white. So it was a tedious model to paint, but it turned out really well. Behind it, we have a three-man aggressor unit with the Boltstorm. I think they call it Boltstorm or Fragstorm, whatever they call those little bolter guns on their fist. And yeah, those guys look pretty nice. I didn't go with the flamers, mostly because I kind of want them to be a midfield. Plus, not to mention the Boltstorm. It's a pretty good gun at any range, and so yeah, no reason not to use that one. And yeah, so moving on. All right, so we have an impulsor. I never thought I was going to buy an impulsor because I always thought it was like I thought it was really crummy that the Rhino could hold 10, but the impulsor could only hold 6, I think it is. So it can't hold a full squad of 10. And it never made any sense to me because like a Rhino scale-wise is not going to fit 10 Firstborn Space Marine. It just won't. But you made an impulsor tank. Why can't I take a whole squad of 10 with them? I still don't like that. I think the impulsor, I think your transport should be able to take a standard troop size squad. And I don't know if they were trying to go standard size squads as 5. But yeah, I think that's an oversight. I think that we should just change the rules for the impulsor to be able to take 10 men or 10 regular Primaris Space Marines. But either way, I got an impulsor mostly to cart around the blade guard. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm using it for. All right, now right here, the meat of the army, you know, the ones doing most of the backbone of the work, we have 20. Oh, there we go. We have 20 assault intercessors, either 4 squads of 5 or 2 squads of 10. Originally, when I made this army list, I had 4 squads of 5, each with a plasma pistol and a thunderhammer. Points-wise, and someone recommended not doing that. They said keep them 10-man, but you can combat squad them, and so I went with 1 thunderhammer and 1 power fist, but both have plasma pistols. The thunderhammer and the power fist are really close in like what they do, so I didn't think it was that big of a difference to have one or the other. I kind of like the look of having just having a power fist because the primary assault power fist looks kind of cool. Behind them, we have 2 3-man interceptors. Yeah, I think it's inceptors. I think they're interceptors, or either way. They got a lot of plasma guns, so we went with that. If you notice, I don't have a common theme for my plasma gun glow. These ones were green. I was actually gonna, funny enough, do one of them green, 1 3-man squad green, and the other 3-man squad yellow. But I ended up just doing them all green, and so these have green glow, these have blue glow. Obviously the Redemptor Dreadnought has pink. Oh, and then I didn't even really put a glow, but I put red on the kind of a corn red. No, I think it's like a dark pink red for one of the Blade Guard veterans. But yeah, so let's take a little zoom out. So yeah, that is 2,000 points of Atlantian spears, and this is probably the only army I currently own right now that is like tournament legal. Like it's got all GW models and it's painted in a coherent color scheme. Yeah, this is the only army that I have right now. All the other armies that I have that are painted either have third-party models or, with my Catachans, have too many Valkyries to be considered match play legal. So this is the only match play legal army I have, which, hey, you know, maybe I might take it out sometime. Who knows? But yeah, if you kind of notice in the background, so if you didn't think already, the Talar being in the background is kind of a hint towards the next stop motion battle report. But before we end today, let's do a discussion on 2 things. So two detachments to expand the army. The first detachment is, I'm currently working on it. It should be done here in the next week or so. It is a Vanguard detachment. It has Mephiston, and he's going to be painting in his traditional red color scheme because I think that'll look pretty good. We have a Primaris Tech Marine. He'll be painted like a Primaris Tech Marine. He's similar with the Librarian, where the Librarian's was blue but with some accents. That won't be red with some Atlantean Spear kind of accessories. And then we have 3 Leviathan Dreadnoughts. 1 Leviathan Dreadnought being a shooty dreadnought with all the different... I've already magnetized them. I'm pretty sure I've already shown them on the channel at some point. And then the other 2 are going to be melee variants with 1 Power Claw, 1 Drill, the Flamers, but still having the missile pods on or the Hunter Killer missiles. So that is going to be another 1,000 points to bring this up to 3,000 points. And I think it'll look pretty nice when we get there. I do have an idea moving forward for a 1,000 point detachment of Death Company. I want to wait though until there is a rumor that we're going to be getting assault intercessors that have jump packs potentially in the future, like a 5-man unit. Instead of the interceptors with the shooty ones, we might be able to get some, because in the new Space Marine video game, they did show off one of the captains having a jump pack, so we might be able to get some jump pack stuff in the future. And if that is true, I think we might be getting Primaris Sanguinary Guard and Primaris Death Company that have jump packs. So I kind of want to I want to wait a little bit and see if they come out. And I would also like to see if we get a Death Company Redemptor Dreadnought, because I think that would be really cool if you had a Redemptor Dreadnought that had two fists. I think that'd be pretty nice to see. So we're going to hold off on that, but I do want to do a 1,000 point detachment of Death Company to go with this army. But obviously, I want to keep the mostly Primaris. And so yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about. But before I go, let me do a quick mention on how I painted this army, because it comes up a lot. So let me move the camera down and we set the paints up. Alright, so here are the colors that were primarily used. Now, I did this army in 3 different ways, and so I'll discuss how I painted the army in 3 different ways. The first way I did is, well, every model got an undercoat of black, so a black undercoat primer through Rattlecan. It's mostly a Krylon. You could use Rust-Oleum, whatever your preferred black is. And then everything got a white zenithal with an airbrush with Vallejo white. So every model got exactly that. After that, it kind of changes and evolves as it goes through based on what colors were painted. The librarians were different because they were painted blue, so theirs was a different. They went a different path. Same thing with the apothecary, because he was done mostly white. But for the blue color scheme, this is kind of how it went. So I tried doing it by hand. So what I did is on the white zenithal, I did an undercoat of Sotek green. I did a base coat by hand with a brush, just an overall base coat brush. I did an overall Sotek green, and then I did an overall wash with this green shade right here, this colloidal, however you say it. I used that green shade, and then I went and hand highlighted back in the Sotek green. I hand layered it. I did not highlights, but I layered. I hand layered in the Sotek green, and then I hand highlighted Temple Guard blue on top of that. So you can do that. That is a way to do it if you want to do it by hand if you don't have an airbrush. And I do admit that the infiltrators do pop a little bit better than the rest of the army. Obviously, the rest of the army, in my mind, looks really good either way. And I kind of like how the infiltrators their battle roll being slightly different. Now, what I did next, once I started, I was like, I want to do this a little faster. I want to try the airbrush. So what I did is everything was already zenithal white. So I took turquoise and the game color turquoise, because it's very similar to Sotek green. And unfortunately, Citadel does not make an air Sotek green, and game color does not make an air turquoise, which is annoying. I did look at Vallejo model blue-green, but it's a slightly different hue than I was going after, and it wasn't easily available in my area. So these 2 paints were available, and I didn't have to wait for shipping for both these. I could just go to the store, 10 minutes away, 20 minutes away, and just grab them. So what I ended up doing is I put turquoise through my airbrush, I thinned it down, and I sprayed it over everything. So all the other models, so the Blade Guard, the Redemptor Dreadnought, the Impulsor, all the other models, they got a blasting of turquoise. And then what I did after that is for the vehicles, I left them alone. For both the Redemptor Dreadnought and the vehicle, I left them as is. I left just the turquoise as the base coat because I was going to do some panel edge highlighting, which I did. I don't know if it shows up on the video very well, but there is some edge highlighting on the panels. It's very subtle, but I left those as is. Now, but for all the infantry, what I did is after the turquoise, I did an overall wash with the green shade, and then I took the Temple Guard blue and put that in an airbrush, and then I did a zenithal of the Temple Guard blue on everything else. So that's why everything has a very vibrant blue, and only one person has pointed out that there's not a lot of recess shading, which is true. There's not a lot of recess shading, but if you pick the models up and flip them upside down, it is much darker. So when you're holding the model from above, they look very, very monocolor from above. But if you flip them upside down or you're holding them level, you can see that there is tone variation when you're holding the model. It's different than when you're looking at it through like pictures or whatever. And that is how I did the blue. So to recap, you can do it by hand. And if you do it by hand, I recommend doing Sotek green, the overall shade. You can do a line shade if you don't want to do an overhauled shade. It's either way you want to do it. And then Temple Guard blue, or layering the Sotek green up to Temple Guard blue. I did do a dry brush of skink blue, which I don't have here on the table, but the skink blue is just a lighter dry blue paint. And I did dry brush everything with skink blue, but it doesn't really show up very often. You can sort of see it a little bit, but it's not a necessary. It's kind of like an additional step if you want to add it. But if you're doing edge highlighting and not dry brushing, then you might want to use just like add some like titanium white or some other white to the Temple Guard blue to do an edge highlighting. That's kind of how I would do it if I was going to do a showcase model in this color scheme. That's kind of how I would do it. And so yeah, you can do it by hand or you can do it by airbrush. Now for the vehicles, I did just the turquoise, and then I went through and I used the green shade on all the rivets and all the lines, similar to how I do my tanks. All the rivets and all the areas where the panels make a convergent point, that's where I put the green shade. And then on the edges, I just took some Temple Guard blue and I did some edge highlighting in various different places. I didn't want to go super crazy, super vibrant with it. I just wanted to be just to break up the panels just a little bit. And so that's how I do it with the vehicles and the Redemptor Dreadnought. That's also how I did it with my Leviathan Dreadnought. But and then the other way, you could just do an airbrush. Potentially, you can actually probably skip these steps and just airbrush Temple Guard blue if you're wanting to go really fast. But I kind of think the other steps do help because you can't tell really well unless you're holding a model upside down. But there is a lot of different definition color in some of these models when they're held upside down, just because of how like it's way darker. Oh yeah. I didn't show it on these, but if you follow my Instagram, you'll see that I did the jetpacks on these guys, which look pretty cool and like kind of like a little hidden Easter egg if you are following my Instagram. And the gold is just Retributor armor and Reichland flesh shade. There's nothing else on the gold. I didn't do any other highlighting on the gold, so yeah. I think the combination of the gold and the light blue really resonate together. Which gives a contrast, which makes it look like the gold has more going on than it does. But yeah, so that's been the Army Showcase. That's been the paints I've used. I hope you enjoy it. I do plan on, I'm gonna go finish working on expanding the Army, and yeah. If you want to support the channel, hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment. If you want to support me, feel free to buy my book, Our Galaxy War, Book 1. It's there's a link description below. You can get it in paperback, obviously, or you can get it in Kindle, yeah, in e-format. And so, yeah. Aside from that, hope you have a good one, and I will talk to you next time. Goodbye. Welcome, welcome everyone. All right, so yeah. Welcome everyone. It's Gray Shirt Guy rocking the gray shirt. What the fuck was that? All right, so we have the mostly here it is. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. It's Gray Shirt Guy rock the gray shirt. So what the fuck was that? I don't even know. Don't even. All right, so here are the colors now for this extra detachment will probably be made. Hello everyone, it's Gray Shirt Guy, rock the gray shirt as always. Welcome everyone. What am I saying?
Words! I don't know words.